The views and opinions expressed on this program are not necessarily those of this station, JVC Broadcasting Management, or its sponsors.
With so many people living longer, the fear of outliving your money becomes a reality for many of us. Will I be a financial burden? Will I outlive my money? How will I be remembered? My name is Neil Himmelstein, president of Main Street Planning Group. Please contact me by visiting mainstreetplanninggroup.com. That's mainstreetplanninggroup.com, or call 631-647-4694. I will introduce you to strategies that will guarantee you will not outlive your money, that can guarantee you will not be a burden on your loved ones. Through a collaborative approach, we will uncover solutions that offer tax-efficient strategies, lifetime income, and legacy planning, choice, organization, direction, and education. That is the code we stand behind. Contact mainstreetplanninggroup.com, that's mainstreetplanninggroup.com, or call 631-647-4694. And listen to me every Friday at 3 p.m. as I host the Main Street Code for Financial Success, right here on 103.9 LI News Radio. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Main Street Code for Financial Success. I'm your host, Neil Himmelstein. I can be reached anytime at 631-647-4694 or themainstreetcode.com. And if you miss an episode, we're here every Friday at 3 o'clock. You can check me out on Apple or Spotify and catch our latest, or go to our website and catch past episodes, or just catch up if you're in your car. We hope to be accessible to you at any time. And we are independent wholesalers representing hundreds of insurance companies across the United States. We work with lots of financial professionals, attorneys, and CPAs in helping you and your plans in the areas of life insurance, long-term care, disability, and annuities. And that's where our expertise lies. And when we talk about our code, we talk about choice, organization, direction, and education. And the very first steps in any type of planning is that word organization. And we help you organize your assets, and we help build your team. And today, one of my favorite team members, Cheryl Katz, is here with me. And Cheryl, tell them who you're with and what you do, and let's get the party started.
Awesome. Thanks, Neil. Thanks again for having me on the show. My name is Cheryl Katz. I am a partner at the law firm Forchelli Deegan Terrana. We are a full-service law firm located in Uniondale. My area of practice, what I solely focus on, is trusts and estates. So that includes like estate planning, estate administration, but one of my main areas of focus in this area of law is trust and estates litigation.
Yeah, and that's a huge area. And I ran across a situation this week. You know, I'm always running across situations where you're kind of like in the back. You know, most of the attorneys I work with are in the planning stages.
Yeah.
And you also are very good in that area, but you see what happens when the plans fail. Yeah. And they could be very simple things that fail. And I was with clients this week, and we did some planning on long-term care and this and that. And I asked them, by the way, do you have a will? Oh, we downloaded something online.
Oh, geez.
And, I could find mine's notarized. I heard on the radio that I have to have it notarized. Mine's notarized. I went to the bank because my husband's isn't, and the bank wouldn't notarize the will. This just came up.
It's a disaster waiting to happen. I mean, one of the grounds for a will to be deemed invalid by a court is when something is not duly executed. Interestingly, in New York State, you don't need a notary for a will to be valid, but there is a very strict procedure that is required. If that very strict procedure is not followed, you probably don't have a valid will. So going to a bank just because they have a notary likely means that is not a valid will. For a will to be valid, it has to be signed in the presence of two witnesses, disinterested witnesses, and the person who's signing the will needs to say, hey, this is my will. I know what this says. Can you two please witness me signing this will? I don't say it like that in front of clients, but for the most part, that's what is required for a will to be valid. Now, you usually have an affidavit attached to the will. An affidavit is a sworn statement which states that it was duly executed, the person who signed it had capacity, things like that. That's what needs the notary. So this is why you really should have an estate planning attorney involved with such important documents.
Absolutely. And then the other thing she was worried about, because she listens to a lot of shows, and there's some really great estate planning attorneys that speak on these shows. And some focus on trusts and this and that. And the misconception was, and this is our true conversation, well, trust is going to cost me $5,000. So she may not need a trust. It might be just basic wills, which wouldn't cost that much.
Correct.
And that's the fear. And people are doing it themselves, and maybe it'll cost them $1,000 or $1,500. But if you're going to the right people who know what they're doing, it's so important. Now, that was one situation this week that happened.
Yeah,
then
and if I could just touch on that, Neil, like the way you should look at estate planning documents is more like an investment for your future and your family's future. So sure, a trust, she's right, a trust is typically more expensive than a will.
Right.
But why on earth are you doing a trust?
Right.
Because a trust is valid immediately. You don't have to go to court. Your family doesn't have to go to court after you pass. They don't need to probate a will. So sure, a trust is a little bit extra money now, but now you save the $1,250 filing fee. You save the probate proceeding. You save so much money after you pass away. It's just, you're all about the code and planning and organizing. A trust just helps you plan and organize that much better in certain situations.
Right. So now I'm going to talk about another client that happened this week.
You had a busy week, didn't you?
Oh, it's been a busy week today.
Doing something
just
right.
Today. So I met with a nice young man, and he was telling me about his parents. And his parents had sold their house, and they moved in with their parent and took care of them for many years, with the idea, and in their will was that the house was going to be left to them, and the other siblings were going to get money or some sort of compensation. Well, that his grandparents had died.
Yeah.
Now all of a sudden, and they supposedly had wills, the siblings are fighting for the house.
Oh, jeez.
Now the house still has taxes to be paid, and there's a mortgage on the house, and who's paying for all that while this is going on? And I think the wills didn't have a clause in it. It was a little clause that you need, and this is why you can't do it yourself. And this is my big thing. And it's some kind of contestability.
Yeah.
What's that called?
It's called an interim clause.
Interim clause.
And it's really like an anti-contest clause. We call it a no contest clause every day. Like, throw in a no contest clause in the will. It's really an anti-contest clause. So what that does is it tries to dissuade a family member, somebody that could be adversely affected by the will, from challenging the will. So in your case, it probably sounds like it would have been beneficial, because what does it do? So let's say the people who are getting the house, they're benefiting more financially than the other kids that are just getting a specific dollar amount. So what you do is you put in this no contest clause, and what that says is if any individual under my will who benefits, who's getting something under the will, if they fight my will and they lose, then they will be disinherited. So what that does is it gives these kids, in this case, who are getting cash, it causes a question, should I fight this will? Because if I lose this, I'm not going to even get my cash, let alone the house that I'm fighting for. I'm going to get nothing.
Right.
So it really dissuades litigation in some circumstances. But as a litigator, you always look for it if you're thinking about fighting a will.
Right.
Because sometimes lawyers put it in and it's meaningless. So for example, in your case where the house goes to some people and the cash goes to the others. Let's say the cash wasn't going to the others, right? And everything was going to the kids getting the house, and the other kids were getting nothing. When you put a no contest clause in there, it's meaningless.
Right.
They don't have anything to lose, and it actually creates more issues under New York law by doing that.
But this is why, once again, you go to a professional, you get your documents done right. In getting organized in any type of financial planning, I always go from the top down. Do you have a building? The first question I ask is, do you have a will?
Yeah.
Do you have an attorney? What type of attorney is it? Now, not every attorney knows how to draft a will. Anybody can download a will from online. Anybody can. Even a regular attorney can.
Yep.
But that doesn't mean that that's a good document, because the problem is, just like buying insurance online, you may think you're saving money, but boy, does it cost you money if that thing fails. And we're going to talk about the process of, oh my God, because you're in the after effect.
Yes.
So we're going to talk about that right after we come back from break. You're listening to the Main Street Code for Financial Success. My host, I'm the host, Neil Himmelstein, and my guest,
Cheryl Katz from Forchelli Deegan Terrana.
And how can I get a hold of you, Cheryl?
516-248-1700.
Thank you very much. And we're going to be right back after this moment. Welcome back to the Main Street Code for Financial Success. I'm your host, Neil Himmelstein, and with me is the unbelievable Cheryl Katz, who is a trust and estate litigator. So she gets in the courts when things go wrong or somebody feels like they've been not done well by the courts or by the will, and they contest a will, and they'll hire somebody like Cheryl. And you don't want to hire just any litigator. You want to hire a specialist who knows all the laws about what happens when a will is probated. But here's the process, and here's the problem. Now, before the break, we talked about a couple who lived in a house and took care of their mom until she passed, assumed they were getting the house, and now the siblings are suing for the house. So now this is where they live. They got big problems. They have to pay the taxes, this and that, but they may be paying and not even own the house at the end of the day. But now the siblings say, okay, we were part of the house. How long does this process take? And what goes on now? First off, forget about the discourse.
Yeah.
That these siblings will not be talking to each other maybe for the rest of their lives, when they may have been amicable at some point. You know, I would not want that to happen to my children.
Yeah.
And I'm sure their mom never wanted that to happen. Nobody wants their family to be a shambles afterwards, and then all of a sudden, and this happens every day and twice on Sunday.
Every day.
Okay. All of a sudden, the siblings, okay, they get along. All of a sudden, it comes to money, houses, property, things. Everything goes haywire. Everybody starts to fight, and then it leads to, I've seen it, you see it every day. Okay. So, you file, let's say you're in Suffolk County, and that person files a lawsuit and contests the will. How does that whole process work, and what's the time frame? What are the costs associated? Just give me the rundown of all this nonsense.
I'd be happy to. So what I usually tell my clients, and again, I am involved in estate planning, especially more complex estate planning, where it looks like litigation will arise in the future. What I tell my clients is a will is just a piece of paper until a judge says it's valid. That's it. So for a judge to say it's a valid document and then it's admitted to probate, there is a process that has to be followed. So what happens? So somebody dies, and the nominated executor, the named executor under the will, who's the person who's going to be in charge.
If you have a valid will.
Assuming you have.
And you can find the will.
Well, that's a whole nother issue.
And if it's notarized, and okay, but there's a lot of things right there.
There is.
So for you doing it online or you do it yourselfers, be careful because you're gonna mess up.
Yeah, and if there's only one original will, you only sign one, and if you can't find it or your family can't find it after you pass, it's like it never existed unless you can successfully probate it through a lost will proceeding, which is a whole nother headache and an expense. But let's say you have the one original will in your hand, your mother passed away, and you're named executor. So what do? So you bring the will to court with an original death certificate, and you pay a filing fee. So for example, if your estate is worth $500,000 or more, you are giving the court immediately $1,250 just to walk into court with the document.
Right. Now, people say, well, my estate's not worth that much. I only have, $100,000 or something. It's not worth that much. But you have a house that's paid for and it's worth $500,000. Well, guess what?
$1,250 in that case to Suffolk County Surrogates Court.
And average houses on Long Island
are more than $500,000 or right around there.
Yeah,
So the executor brings it in along with a petition asking the judge to have the will declared valid, admitted to probate, and appoint them as the executor. Because right now they can't do anything. So if there's a mortgage, nobody can really pay it. Taxes, nobody can even speak to the tax institutions on the decedent's behalf. A lot of people say, but I was power of attorney during life. Well, that power of attorney dies immediately with the person who granted it. So there's nobody acting right now in between death and probate on behalf of the decedent. The will has to be probated. So what happens is before the judge will declare it valid, he or she will issue a citation to all the people that would be interested under the will. And there is a statute in New York about who your family is. But let's say you have a spouse and 2 kids. In that case, it would be your spouse and 2 kids. Let's say you have a spouse, 2 kids, and 1 kid who died before you, but they left kids. It would be your spouse, 2 kids, and your grandchildren in that case. So it depends on the family tree. But all of those people are going to get notice that the will is trying to be probated. They will be served with a document, they'll be served with the will, and then let's say they don't get anything, or they don't get equal to what the executor is getting, or they feel like, Mom never told me about this, that can't be valid. They will go to court and say, well, Judge, I want to contest this will.
Wow. So I had a situation with a family, and the woman's husband, she was about 80, but her husband had died. Her son, her husband, and her, and she had a daughter, were all equal tenants of a house. Mm-hmm. Her son had died. This was during COVID. They both died during COVID. And the sons got divorced right before he died. And they have 2 children.
What a mess.
So there's going to be a huge mess.
Yeah, especially if they own the house.
He's still joint tenant in common.
Yeah, that's a mess.
So eventually, her grandchildren were, and she doesn't get along with the wife. You know what? I don't think they were divorced, but she doesn't get along with the wife, and the wife has kept the grandchildren from her.
Wow.
So now the wife is involved because it's just crazy. But you know what? This is not.
But this is every day. I mean, things like this is.
But people think that just because they just own a house and they have limited assets, I don't need to see an estate planning attorney. And this is what I'm trying to convey to people: is that it's so important to get your stuff
in order. And look at it like it's an investment, just like you meet with tax advisors, you meet with insurance carriers, you meet with brokers.
So important. It's the basics of everything. And you want to work with an attorney. If you don't have one, we can certainly recommend them to you. You know, somebody like Cheryl. That you want to work with people that you trust and that are also working in conjunction with your other advisors in your life, whether it's your CPA, your insurance advisor, your investment advisor. They all should be on the same page, and you should have a team together. And everybody has their own team if you do it right. And a lot of times we'll quarterback that team. We'll put the team together for you if you don't have one. And I'm working with someone now who's, he's got 4 businesses. And he came to me, and I don't know if I'm going to do an LLC, a C Corp, a this, a that, a blah, blah, blah. Oh, whoa. You sit with me and my business attorney, and we're going to first look at where you're at. Insurance will come later. We're not talking about that. Let's get the structure down. Yeah. Then let's get how are you doing payroll? How are you doing this? All these integral parts, you want to put that team together. And even the very basic, if not for you, even for your parents. Discuss this with your parents. I don't care if you're 60 and your parents are 80, or you're 30 and your parents are 60, or your grandparents. Everybody should be kind of in line so that you don't have problems later on. Yeah. That's kind of
It's funny that you say that, because I was at a networking event last night at a restaurant in Garden City, and I'm getting ready to leave, and a man approached me. He's like, is there like a lot of lawyers here or something? We're all in suits, and we were all professionals, not all attorneys. And I'm like, well, yes, sir, I'm an attorney. Do you need something? He's like, I just moved here from Florida. My mom is 80. I have no idea what I'm doing. She's getting sick. I don't know how I'm going to pay for anything if she needs aids. I don't know about the house. I said, okay, you came to the right place. I gave him my card, and, if he reaches out, I'm happy to walk him through the process, talk to his mother. His mother would be my client. And then I can also, bring you in on that case, because it seems like there could be some insurance issues.
Well, I mean, there always is.
Yeah.
And so getting organized is key.
Yeah. Having
the right documents, a will, healthcare proxy, the basics. And if you need trust, that's something. But that's the key to today. And thank you so much for listening. And Cheryl, you're always one of my favorite guests.
Love being here. And
you're been listening to the Main Street Code for Financial Success. If you'd like to reach me, I'm at 631-647-4694. And Cheryl, how can they get a hold of you?
516-248-1700.
Very good. Thank you, everybody, and have a wonderful afternoon.
Thank you.
The views and opinions expressed on this program are not necessarily those of this station, JVC Broadcasting Management, or